What's up, everybody? It's AT. It is Saturday night, about 8:30 Eastern time, and I've decided very quickly to just go ahead and do a quick YouTube reaction to the Kentucky-Arkansas game that just went final. Listen, I'll be blunt. We won't be telling our grandchildren about the game that just went final at Bud Walton Arena, but do want to talk about it really quick as Kentucky gets the win 63-57 in what frankly was a very important game for both of these teams. For Arkansas, listen, we know what has happened this season. We know the struggles. Just can't get going. We find out before the game that Devo Davis is, at least for now, no longer with the program. Trevin Brazil is hurt. So they desperately needed the win. Kentucky, of course, coming off of that loss at South Carolina, where really nothing went very well. And so it was an interesting game. It was a fun game. It was a low scoring game. It was a physical game. It was a defensive game. But Kentucky does get the much needed win. Final score 63-57. All right, so let's break it down. Let's talk about it. The first thought that I have, first of all, fun game. First thought that I have, how about Antonio freaking Reeves? Okay, so let's start with Kentucky. Obviously, they are the victors. They do go on the road. They do get a win. But when I look at this win, I don't know what else there is to say other than that. Show Antonio Reeves some respect. Show my guy some respect, okay? Antonio Reeves, a year after going to Arkansas, putting up 37 points in, last year I would have called it a must-win game, but it was a very important game for Kentucky a year ago, puts up 37. This game, he puts up 24. And I saw my buddy Nick Coffey say this, and I thought it was 100% correct. Is there a player in college basketball that does more for a high-profile team that gets less respect than Antonio Reeves? Listen, I'm not saying he has to be a first-team All-American. I'm not saying, we should be talking about him in the same vein as like RJ Davis or something like that. But this is a guy that averages 19 points per game for a team that's in the top 10 in the country and the bluest of blue bloods in all of college basketball. And it just feels like when we talk about the most important players in college basketball, some of the best players in the sport, I don't feel like he gets nearly enough credit. But he obviously led Kentucky. But what I would say more than that from the Kentucky perspective, what really stood out to me was this team's ability to overcome adversity on the road, and more importantly, to do it shorthanded, right? So first of all, back-to-back road games. You just lost at South Carolina. Everybody knows that. But at the same time, what was even more impressive to me, you're doing this without Rob Dillingham. Rob Dillingham, one of the most electric players offensively in college basketball. He is not available for this game. Beyond that, you look at the situation where no Rob Dillingham. Early on, you're really struggling to get going offensively. Now, listen, part of that is credit to Arkansas. Now, listen, I tweeted this out, but I've been to practices all over the country. Been to Calipari practices, been to UCLA, been to this, been to that, whatever. Eric Musselman and his staff, I would argue, they practice verticality more than any other team in college basketball. Okay, what is verticality? It is the ability to jump straight up with your hands up without fouling. And so it was interesting because early in the game, Kentucky's getting all these fast breaks, trying to go up. Everything's getting blocked at the rim. And again, they were able to overcome some very major offensive struggles early. No Rob Dillingham to get a win in a game that I think they kind of needed to win. Listen, I said it after the game a few days ago. I did not believe the reaction to South Carolina I didn't think it was as bad as everybody made it out to be. But at the same time, you needed to bounce back and win this game. Now, with South Carolina, it was one of those deals where I think South Carolina was uniquely built to beat Kentucky. Everybody says they want to play slow. South Carolina does play slow, slowest pace in the SEC. By the way, South Carolina picked up another nice win today against Missouri. So I wasn't as worried about the game against South Carolina, but you lose this game for Kentucky. Now, that would be 3 games in a row that you've lost on the road, and obviously you can't have that going forward. Beyond that, what also stood out is, besides the overcoming adversity stuff, this was a team win in every stretch of the imagination, okay? I look at the effort by Kentucky. I look at not just Antonio Reeves, who we just talked about, but I thought it was a really just solid, complete game for pretty much everybody across the board. Reed Sheppard Just in the second half, Jay Billis just referenced this there late, but just in the second half, Reed Sheppard with 14 points, 4 assists, a couple big threes after a game in which he struggled against South Carolina. I thought he looked much, much, much better. And again, by the way, caused chaos on the defensive end as well. Trey Mitchell, couple big threes. Listen, we know about him. We know what he does. We know the fact that he is the much needed veteran presence that this Kentucky team desperately needs, and he provided it on Saturday with a couple big threes late. And I just thought poise overall from Trey Mitchell. And then the other guy, listen, I'm just going to say this. I freaking love DJ Wagner. Okay. So and we've talked about this on the show before, but DJ Wagner, when he was in high school, he was the number one high school player in America, basically from the time that he was from his freshman year on in high school. He was the number one player in America. And so everybody spent so much time picking apart his game. How good is he? How much better is he getting? What are his limitations? Sometimes when you see a guy too much, you pick apart their game. And I think DJ Wagner is a perfect example of that, where if he was a little more off the radar early in his career, I do think he probably wouldn't have been as knocked late in his career in high school. He didn't have a great game offensively, but his ability to consistently get to the rim, I just think, listen, the shots didn't fall today because Arkansas has multiple 7-footers that they can throw at you. But I thought it was just a great team effort overall. And you do it in a game where you basically get nothing from Aaron Bradshaw. Onyenso, I thought, played pretty well, but not great. And I think the good news, if you're Kentucky, is the next 2 are at home. 4 of the next 5 are at home. The only road game is against Vanderbilt. And so you'd hope you could go on a little bit of a run here. Florida at home on Wednesday. You beat them in Gainesville. Now, listen, Florida's a really talented team, but at the same time, Florida also weirdly plays up and down, and they're just a very inconsistent team. They were up by 20 today, by the way, against Georgia, and barely held on in overtime. So that feels like a good spot. Obviously, Tennessee next week, then at Vandy, and then Gonzaga, which is obviously a very interesting out-of-conference matchup before you play Ole Miss about a week from now. Really quickly, I do want to talk about Arkansas. I do have a couple takeaways, and I say this, as a guy that had an opportunity to see this team in person. A lot of thoughts on Arkansas. Okay, so the first thought on Arkansas, let me just say this pretty quickly, is one, the Devo Davis thing is weird. I don't know what's going on. It is interesting. I will say, I did say this, I forget where I said this, one of the interviews that I did, radio interview or whatever. Something just has seemed off about Devo Davis all year. Whatever it is, I do wish him luck. I will say, based on how kind of Jay Billis talked about it during the game, I kind of wonder if there's something maybe not so good going on, maybe not in his personal life, but maybe some friction, whatever. I don't want to speculate, but Jay Billis kind of basically said, hey, man, if you're not going to fall in line with everything that this team is trying to do, you got to go, right? And so it's interesting. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to speculate. Whatever it is, I hope it's okay. But he's also a guy that something has not been right all season long. I mean, even the Auburn game a few weeks ago where Arkansas got beat up pretty bad, he didn't start because he was suspended to start the game. And I sit there and say, wait a second now, you're a 4th-year senior. You've been to 3 Sweet 16s and 2 Elite 8s. How are you the guy that's getting suspended for a first half of a game or first couple minutes of a game? And so whatever's going on, I wish him luck. But from the Arkansas perspective, what does stand out, this was obviously, this was the best defensive effort that Arkansas has had in a very long time. Listen, it's been a disappointing year for Arkansas. And it's crazy because I was obviously at Bud Walton, 6 weeks ago, and they beat Duke at home. And so when I look at this game from the Arkansas perspective, this was the first time in a long time that I thought the defensive effort and energy was there. I give them credit. They played really hard defensively. The problem with this team remains on offense, where you just don't know where you are getting consistent offense from. This is a team that you look at them, the thing about, let me put it this way. Eric Musselman, through the years, historically, his best teams, they have always had the guy that is able to create offense for himself, especially late in games, especially late in the shot clock. Go back to the Nevada days. I know many Arkansas fans watching probably don't remember that, but they had the Martin twins. Caleb Martin could just take over a game late. Mason Jones in 2020 could take over a game late. Anthony Black last year, JD Note in 2021. I just don't know that they have that guy right now. Now, I do think it felt to me that Tremont Mark is trying to be that guy, and he probably should be that guy. Obviously, not a great three-point shooter, but he's averaging 18 a game right now this season, and it feels like that has to be the game plan from Arkansas's perspective: is put the ball in his hands, let him go, and then you hope you can get some positive production from a Caleb Battle, from an Ellis who played well today, and defensively, again, it was there. And that's where I think there has to be a little bit of positivity if you're an Arkansas fan, because it does feel like, okay, wait a second now. This was the best defensive effort you've had in weeks, and kind of like Kentucky. You're now the difference between Arkansas and Kentucky. You're going on the road going forward, but you have games that you can win. You play at Missouri later this week. Missouri, along with Vanderbilt and frankly Arkansas, is probably the worst team in the SEC right now. They are struggling. You get them on Wednesday. You go to LSU. Those are two games that you can win. I'll say on top of that, you play Georgia after that. You play like you did today against Georgia at home a week from now, or 2 weeks from now, excuse me. You can win that game, but you got to have the effort going forward that you had today. So for Arkansas, I'm not ready to give up on the season. It's not going to be easy. The SEC is, I think, as tough about 1 through 11, 1 through 12 as it has ever been. But man, oh man, oh man, there were some positives. Now you got to build some momentum off of it going into the second half of the year. I think that's really it. We got a couple comments. Let me take a look, see if there's anything worthwhile. Andy says an ugly win is still a win. Go Cats. I'm glad UK could get an ugly win on the road. Aaron on hoops. Reed Shepherd played great. Trey Mitchell did a lot for UK. It's an ugly win. Listen, maybe I didn't make this clear enough, and so let me make sure that I make it clear right now. I do think that this is maybe more than anything why I think Kentucky deserves credit for when Saturday night here against Arkansas. I'm thinking about Wednesday night when they played against South Carolina. Why I do think they do deserve a little bit of credit is because you go back to Wednesday night, they just quit on the road against South Carolina. And in this game, they were down early. It was ugly. It would have been easy for them to quit. It would have been easy for them to basically pack it in early, and they rallied. They found a way. And like I said earlier, if you missed it, they got a lot of real production from different guys. Reed Shepherd was awesome. Trey Mitchell was awesome. I still like DJ Wagner, even though he wasn't unbelievable. And obviously it goes without saying Antonio Reeves as well. Tell you what, got some stuff to do, so I'll probably get out of here, watch the remainder of these games. One, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. We'll do a lot of these reactions as we get deeper into college hoop season. That's one. Also, on top of that, we will have more reaction to this game and a fun Saturday at college hoops on the Aaron Torres pod on Monday. Did you see Arizona bounce back nicely? We'll obviously talk about that. What else happened on Saturday that's probably worth acknowledging? Duke. Did you watch Duke? There was some sketchy stuff that happened in that Duke game, so we will react to that. But I think my biggest takeaway is credit Kentucky on the road, needed the win. They got to win. Thought it was a great team effort, especially without Rob Dillingham. And oh, by the way, from the Arkansas perspective, they can bounce back. They will be okay. All right, people. That's all. Make sure to subscribe. If you have not subscribed, click that subscribe button. We're going to get out of here. Also, Aaron Torres pod Monday. More reaction to this. We'll probably talk a little NFL as well. Hope everybody has a great Saturday evening. More college hoops. It's coming your way.